Welcome to Celtics Rundown, a part of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, joined by two very special guests today. We have Cameron Tabatabai and Justin Quinn from Celtics Wire, 2/3 of the Celtics Lab podcast. Shout out to Alex Goldberg, who could not make it today. Designer Smart forever, of course. Cam, Justin, thank you for taking the time.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. And so there's a lot to get into right now, including most notably just an overall assessment of how we've seen the Celtics season go as we reach the All-Star break now. And of course, we're going to discuss our suggestions for how we would fix the All-Star game as the NBA tries out a new format this year for what seems like it could potentially be a lost cause. So we're going to give our pitch for reviving it. But let's start with the Celtics and Spurs game from the other night. Boston gets a 13-point win. They head into the break on a 3-game win streak. They've won 8 of their last 10, 6 of their last 7. Things looking pretty good, Cam.
Yeah, things are mostly looking good. I don't really have too much to nitpick. I think the biggest takeaway for me is, people when they see basketball players in real life, they can't believe how tall these people are. But then Porzingis and Wembanyama are tall compared to basketball players. And just some of the post play between Porzingis and Wembanyama was like so beautiful, so lanky. Yeah, if you're a Celtics fan, it was a good game, but they basically blew the pants off of them in the first quarter and then played even. But what's up, Pete? The purist in me just like really, really loved some of the little battles. And you know what? Shout out Chris Paul. That dude has been playing the same way for almost 20 years now. You either like it or you don't, but it's consistent. So there were some Chris Paul moments that I really liked. What about you, Justin?
Well, as you know, I only watched the second half of that contest. I was doing some other stuff beforehand. But, I mean, just seeing the way that Jason Tatum has been playing recently, it's hard not to get excited. That was a great game from Kristaps as well. So if those two are heating up and Jalen is hopefully healing up along with Drew, I think we're going to be in for a good stretch run.
Yeah, and I thought it was smart to pace Drew Holiday, give him 4 games off going into the break. It's a 34-year-old who played in the Olympics, so a truncated summer gets even shorter for him. And this was a wise move to try and help him be at his best at the right time and when it matters most. Danny C., Ethan did not sell to Boston. This is a Celtics podcast, a part of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, shout out to Pete. We see you. We love you. And Justin, let's get right to it, because one of the most exciting parts outside of Wembanyama coming to town from last night's game against San Antonio was the team debut for Torrey Craig. What did you see from him?
I mean, 2 shots, 2 3-pointers, 9 minutes, not too much to dislike. I mean, he's not going to do too much more probably in the regular season and maybe even less in the postseason. But having someone who can fill that role when a Jalen or a Drew is out is actually really huge. They don't have a lot of bench depth, as we saw last night. Basically, it was Pritchard and nobody. So anybody who can actually put the biscuit in the basket off the bench, it's a win.
Yeah, I think.
Cam, what'd you see from him?
It looked good. I mean, he's a journeyman. I don't want to like put the weight of the world in him. This is not like PJ Brown coming to town. This is not going to change things radically, I don't think. But certainly down the stretch, if they want to continue to rest guys, if Sam Hauser has to start, to Justin's point, now you need some scoring off the bench. Like it just, with respect to Jaden Springer and guys like Xavier Tillman, Boston wasn't getting that out of the 9th, 10th, 11th guy in the rotation. And now it seems like they might. And it seems like the magic of TD Garden is like wearing off on Torrey Craig immediately. He said all the right things post-game. And I think it's probably really inspiring to play. On our podcast on Celtics Lab, we were talking about to Tony Allen and Zach Randolph this week. And I was asking them about how good they got at defense, and Tony Allen joked. He said, Zebo wasn't that good at defense, but he saw me kicking ass and like he upped his game. And so Torrey Craig, he's played for some good teams, but certainly going from the Chicago Bulls to the Boston Celtics is going to bring out the best in him. Can I try something on for size for you? Prior to this, I assumed we were going to talk about Torrey Craig. I looked up if he has a nickname. He doesn't. I found 4 on Nuggets Reddit from 7 years ago. Let me see if you guys like these. The Cragnarok, the aggro Crag, although his name's Craig, I think. A reference to Guts on Nickelodeon back in the day. Craigslist, someone wrote, because we basically got him for free.
Craigslist is a good one. And then, that's in the lead right now.
And then the Predator, or the Predator, but spelled like Tory.
Craigslist.
Craigslist.
But it's me,
Out of
isn't
that,
it, at his expense?
no, it's all
I
about
mean,
you say it with a
you
positive.
can be a bargain and still be good.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being a bargain. I mean, look at Peyton Pritchard.
Yeah,
This
but
was
we
a
don't call him
value
like
move,
eBay
Cam.
or something.
So
All right. Anyways,
I would also say that it's at the top of the leaderboard of those suggestions. I don't know if we rush to put it in pen.
Sure. I'm sure that there's
Right,
a
what-
stupid British politics joke you could make too.
Oh no.
That's true
No.
too. You can go there, but that is the beauty of you can work with the first or the last name to come with the nickname. So All-Star break, Celtics fans, prime opportunity to pin one down for Torrey Craig. Cam, you mentioned his comments after the game saying all the right things. Quote, "It was crazy, the atmosphere, the crowd, the fans. It's just a joy to play in front of a crowd like that. And yeah, man, I'm just glad I made my debut in the Garden. I'm glad I hit my first shot." And look, with Jaden Springer, excuse me, we will always have that Clippers game. But with Torrey Craig, I mean, I was championing, including on here for a while, that if they're going to make an addition, he makes as much sense as any of the realistic options afforded to them. This is someone who is a two-way player, who fills that need for a big wing, who will contribute on the glass. He's really developed over the course of his career into a reliable three-point shooter at a low volume. So Justin, like you mentioned, comes in 2 for 2 right away, nails one in the corner off a pass from Tatum. So Torrey Craig, to me, what stands out, and Cam, this is to your point about going from the Bulls to the Celtics, is that, you know, Chicago was kind of just shelving him. And yes, he had the ankle injury, but when you see someone who hasn't played since December and they're immediately able to come in and they look pretty good from a stamina and conditioning standpoint, it suggests that the Bulls also, you know, if this was a more competitive club, then he probably would have returned sooner.
Yep.
I mean, a smarter version of the Bulls would have probably been able to trade him for a second round pick or something, but
You said smarter in Bulls.
yeah.
No.
Can I tell you, that's the other point from last night's game. Right from the start, I'm watching it going, some of these guys should be in Chicago right now. Just what a miscalculation. We had the report from John Hollinger that they were offered a first-round pick for Lonzo Ball as long as they were willing to take on some salary. And granted, we don't have specifics on that part of the equation. But yes, Chicago, of course you should make that deal. But Reinsdorf going to Reinsdorf.
So let's get this straight. This is a podcast network predominantly associated with the Heat that we're supposed to talk about the Celtics, and now we're on the front office of the Bulls.
Sure.
We're all over the place. But look,
Love
the
hoops, baby.
Celtics pod is a part of 5 Reasons expansion. And so they're not just the Heat to begin with. And now they are venturing out in the NBA world outside of Miami. And so here we are.
Cool. What up, South Beach?
And using this opportunity, this live stream, to lambaste the Chicago Bulls ownership and front office. Although, quite
You
frankly,
Heat
Cam, they
fans-
deserve it.
You're going to love Kelly O'Leary. He's freaking great. I love him.
Yeah,
But
we
no.
don't need to I'm not buttering any buns for anyone. I think this version of the Heat team is kind of cool.
Yeah, they're fun.
Without a doubt.
They're not going to win a ton
Also-
of games down the stretch, but like it's fun and spunky and set up
It's a
for
rebuild
success.
year.
Yeah.
Also, Justin, we'll start with your response to this. I think they're getting Kevin Durant in the summer.
That could be fun. He's going somewhere. I mean, that's pretty much the big. Our friend Yossi Gozlan had him as a very likely mover, along with one of the Celtics starters. Which, if you want to see anything about that, check out his newsletter.
Way to
It's a hell
move
of
the
a plug
product.
right there.
Yeah. Do they have the salary to do that by?
Yeah, and they even have Wiggins' contract now.
Oh yeah.
And I
Wow.
mean, that was a place that he's willing to go, Durant. I know that Matt Ishbia, the owner of the Suns, wants to keep him there for the rest of his career. But then again, when you see the way that things happened and public leaks of being willing to trade him and shop him and all that, I think he's going to, over the summer, ask out. Miami it was one of the top 2 destinations he had in mind leaving Brooklyn. They have the pieces. So Miami, this version, is a fun, scrappy team with a lot of promising young players. Tyler Hero steps up and makes the All-Star game. We're also talking too much about the Heat, but ultimately, I think that Kevin Durant ends up in South Beach.
We have to talk about them. They're going to be facing the Celtics in the second round of the playoffs next season because they always do.
Fair.
Yeah, rivalry back on.
Mhm.
And then, I mean, it's always a treat when Wembanyama comes to town and fans get to see him in person. But Cam, last night was a rare example. I don't know if it was fatigue, if it was looking ahead to the All-Star break, multiple factors, bad sleep, whatever, but he was lethargic. He was pouty, which is normally not the case with him. This is a very mature and professional 20-year-old. But last night, he just, quite frankly, he didn't have it, Cam.
Yeah, I mean, kettle to the pot. I stayed home and watched the game on the couch because I was feeling sick. So maybe he was also. I didn't, see the body language up close. I do also wonder. He's so aware of basketball history. He's so aware of basketball culture. If he was just like extraordinarily excited to come to the Garden ESPN game and put on a show, and early on he got put in an island and it looked bad. And if he's 19 years old and he kind of like lost control of himself there. So he didn't do anything wrong. He kind of found his footing later and he had a perfectly fine game. But yeah, there were a few defensive miscues that looked like a young man, a little overeager and missing the mark. But I was watching from home, so Bobby, it might have been fatigue or something else.
Justin?
I mean, I didn't watch enough of the early part of the game to really say, but it looked like they were playing him a little bit more sparingly in the second half. And honestly, that was actually really helpful for Kristaps Porzingis to not have to take him on directly. And it really, like, they have a long way to go without him, shall we say. They need something else to emerge. And it doesn't look like De'Aaron Fox has really found his groove. He's still kind of like, I mean, they're playing him as a shooting guard and as a secondary player. In terms
I hate it.
Yeah, it's real weird. And I'm not sure exactly what his role is going to be overall in the future. But right now, they really seem like, I wouldn't say shooken up, but like the chemistry that they had earlier in the season looks different. And I guess it's not such a strange thing considering that they lost two major pieces to bring him in and they still have to integrate him.
Well, so the problem right now is that they still have Chris Paul and they can love him and be happy he's there for a number of reasons, but on-court fit is just not one of them.
Yeah.
And he didn't look good and he hasn't looked good alongside Fox. So if I'm San Antonio, I'm staggering their minutes as much as possible after the start of the game. But I mean, Chris Paul out there with him has taken away from what Fox is capable of. There's no question that is their point guard of the future. As soon as this season's over, it doesn't have to wait until then to begin. Also, not a Spurs podcast, but San Antonio
has to look great. UConn guy, what
right?
can I say?
Mm-hmm.
So San
Castle's
Antonio
in the dunk contest, right?
Yes, he is. I'm not sure why, but he is.
Who are you guys rooting for? Sorry to cut you off, Bobby.
I think Andre Jackson Jr. is someone who has.
I'll take out a UConn.
He's a good person to bet. Shout out UConn.
I'm going for McClung. If the Chiefs couldn't three-peat, why maybe Mac can get it done?
Yeah, he is the one to finally break through. I mean, look, this has become Mac McClung's 15 minutes of fame. So I would feel best about him getting it over someone who has a promising career ahead of him like Stephon Castle.
Sure.
And then when it comes to Jason Tatum last night, this will be the last topic we hit on from this game against San Antonio. And a part of this was honestly going at Wemby and putting him in actions, even if he's not defending the on-ball screen, just trying to, one, keep him confused, and two, keep him and his freakish wingspan away from whoever's going to end up with the shot, which is normally Tatum. But the Celtics have this luxury of, and Joe Mazzulla talked about it after the game, that they can play double bigs and keep the floor spaced for Tatum. And we really saw that, Justin, last night in particular.
Yeah, I don't know what to add to that other than Jason Tatum has been able to get to wherever he wants to on the floor recently. And it makes me really doubt the pushback we got from Joe earlier in the season, Joe Mazzulla, about effort. Because if Tatum can do this pretty much at will, then what was happening earlier if it wasn't? Was he injured? I mean, I don't understand why we had such a 6-week lag, but I will say that I am very happy to see that it is not continuing and he is rounding into what looks like an MVP form, even if he's probably well out of the MVP race at this point.
I guess, Justin, I would offer that at full health, the pieces actually don't fit super well together if they're not always looking to pass, right? That like we saw a little bit of Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, your turn, my turn over that stinky 6-week stretch. And Jason works as a point forward or he works as like the point of attack, but as kind of a connecting piece. I don't know that always works. So I think I'm not advocating for massive change here, but I think addition by subtraction, if Jason becomes the default point forward and Porzingis and White are like the supplementary guys who, handle the rock, it flows a lot more smoothly. I still quite believe in Jason and Jalen as a pairing, but only when they're working around kind of the ways the puzzle pieces don't always fit together. And they did in the playoffs last year. They haven't always this season is my diagnosis.
Yeah. To me, it's a pie chart, right? It's just one thing, but there is something that can be more responsible than other factors in the equation. And I look at it and say, when you have Kristaps Porzingis outright saying after that road win in Cleveland that, hey, we get it up for these big games, and kind of acknowledging it hasn't always been there, you can see it, right? So certainly that's part of it. Reintegrating Kristaps and reestablishing continuity, that's another factor. So a multitude of them. Tatum, even with acknowledging his pacing this season in that 6-week lag in particular, he's someone who both availability and effort, I think you often don't have to question or concern oneself with. And what we're seeing with these double big lineups, to get back to it, I mean, even with Luke Kornet, they can keep the space open for Tatum because he's such an effective screener. He makes good decisions when the ball comes his way, Kornet. And so whether it's him and Porzingis or him and Horford, the Celtics have this luxury of being able to make it work while staying double big to protect the glass. And they did an outstanding job against San Antonio of first shot defense and limiting them quite frequently to one shot per possession. So San Antonio only had one quarter last night where they made more than 2 threes. They started 1 for 11 in the first quarter. And then when you're not getting second chances, now if you're Boston, you can play with pace. You can keep everyone in rhythm because the ball, it's just easier to move it and keep people involved. So to me, that is a luxury the Celtics have that most teams around the league do not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not rocket science, but this season has been such a good exercise. And if you hit your shots, it's so helpful for defense. Like, obviously it puts points on the board and that matters, but then you're back. Like, suddenly you have the time and the space to get back on defense. And I think part of that 6-week stretch, Justin, was the Celtics weren't hitting their shots.
And they were not getting back in transition. Jason Tatum in particular.
Yeah. And now, to Bobby's point, against the Spurs, it's Boston who's putting pressure on the perimeter, and San Antonio's not hitting their shots. And so then they're unsettled on defense. And it's, again, I'm just like describing basketball. I mean, this
they have less tools here, but they have less tools to fix that with as well. Or at least I think less functional tools.
I think that's a consequence of that many 3-pointers. Is if you have it, great. If you don't, they're big, deep rebounds. You're that much less set for your defense.
What do y'all think about the tendency of Jalen to have, not entirely, but mostly abandoned the 3-point shot in the last couple of weeks? Is this a good thing, or is this just like him papering over a weakness in his game to, at least for now, a good effect that might be a problem in the postseason?
Well, you want to go first, Bobby?
No, you got it, Kim.
So I've maintained for the past few weeks, I think Jalen is playing hurt.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think he had a stretch where he kept front rimming a bunch of shots, even free throws. And either it's in his head or he is adjusting proactively. So, yeah, I mean, maybe Steve Kerr or someone will come out and make Jaylen Brown take 12 3-pointers and see what happens. But I think he understands the team needs to win. And if he's not hitting shots, that's not going to happen. He still sometimes uses that as license to drive to his left and miss a shot or dribble the ball off his foot. But it probably is a sign of maturity.
I like that take.
So I wouldn't worry about it, but there could be a playoff series where suddenly Jalen is kind of forced to shoot and he doesn't have it because he hasn't been shooting.
So the only thing I would add to that is and this is probably an extreme example of what we've seen from him lately, Justin, but I do like in general that he fits out. And I think that benefits the Celtics and gives them this compliment that they don't have. When he's healthy and he gets the ball in the backcourt, he's pushing it and he doesn't care who's coming, and he's an elite finisher at the rim. That mid-range jumper that last season in particular was stuck on automatic, that is a valuable weapon for him and the team to have at their disposal. So generally, I like the approach. I do think that recently it's kind of gone overboard, but as Cam pointed out, it probably to a large degree relates to not being fully healthy.
Yeah, I think so.
And then just Cam, we'll start with you sizing up the Celtics overall at this All-Star break. And we don't have to really compare it to last season, although you're more than welcome to, but 43-12 at the last All-Star break. They're now 39-16 at this one. What's your assessment of how the Celtics are performing and where they're at as they head into the February break?
What's up? Don't mind me. This is the Celtics time.
We don't mind you. It's okay. We like your team too.
Yeah, you don't mind me. You missed when we waxed poetic about the Heat and their future. What do I think of the Celtics? I don't know. Like the record would look very different if they didn't get punked a few times in December or January, right? Like there are a few key fourth quarters that if Indiana or whomever doesn't hit a bunch of threes to open the fourth quarter, the Celtics win the game and the record is different. I think it cuts both ways. At times, I think to myself, there are teams that are always in a funk, and then the postseason rolls around and they don't play well, and we're like, yeah, that makes sense. They were in a funk. And then there are teams that are truly on autopilot, and they step right into the postseason and turn it back on again. I'm a little unsure of what to think of Drew Holiday's shoulder and the status of Jaylen Brown. I mostly think it's shenanigans and they're just resting and they're going to be fine. I could see a world where either they're actually not right by the spring or that lack of continuity bites them in the butt. The position I've taken all along is I don't know what team in the East is good enough on defense to make it matter.
I really couldn't agree more. I was very nervous about that whole continuity aspect until this recent stretch of games. I mean, just watch them completely disassemble the Knicks and the Cavs in the way that they did. This is not the flip the switch Tristan Thompson version of the Celtics. There's a real switch and they can flip it. I am still a little concerned just because good habits, championships, yada, yada, yada. But we are looking at a team that, as we have said, has won 8 of the last 10 games. You can't really ask for a stretch like that, like more than that from any team, contender or not, unless they are on a historic run, literally. So a lot of my qualms that were getting kind of serious towards the end of December have really started to level off. I still need to see how they react when they come back, how they use Craig. Not that he's going to be a major part of it, but like that could actually be a pretty big scoring bench piece for them, depending on how his health turns out. There's a lot of things going on that I think would make me feel more confident if they continue. But as of now, the nervousness that I think we all had in terms of those of us who cover the Celtics or follow the Celtics were feeling since Thanksgiving has mostly dissipated, and for good reason.
Yeah, I've been saying for most of the season that this stretch coming up is the one that I'm most excited or interested to see what it looks like. Out of the All-Star break, do they crank it up in an effort to be at their best in the playoffs? And if they don't, if the idea is we're going to get it up for the big games and it's going to look the same way all season as it has to this point, it could work, but a lot of teams have tried that in the past and it usually doesn't. At a minimum, it's how you make yourself the most vulnerable in the playoffs. So I wouldn't be a fan of it. I also would completely understand it from age, pacing, injuries, emotional fatigue, all of that. Yeah, I spoke with Drew Holiday recently in an interview for Forbes, and he talked about how tough it is that, you get to the top of the mountain, you try to emotionally exhale and come back down, and then all of a sudden you have to crank it up again. It's very challenging to do. And luckily he's dealt with this before. I think that experience can help the Celtics on this journey, especially when it matters most. Another thing that I look at is not just the fact that overall at this All-Star break, their plus-minus rating is only 1 point shy of what it was a season ago at this juncture, but also someone who's made a difference for them in this, winning 8 of 10 and how they've played lately, Sam Hauser. When the second unit lacks the punch that he's capable of providing because of that lower back pain, it looks a lot different for the whole team, not just what the bench is providing, but when all of a sudden you can start integrating players from the second unit and still be this lethal offensive juggernaut, that's huge. And he's not the same defender he was a season ago because of the back, but it was far more of an issue earlier. Now that he's again healthy, I mean, Justin, you just hope it maintains and doesn't come back to bite them at the worst possible time.
Yeah, the Torrey Craig addition, again, not to give him a bigger role than he realistically have, is important because when Sam is not feeling very well, he can sit now and they can still have some spacing. So that's really important.
Yeah, Bobby, I would just add, like, I think the Spurs are probably not as good as their record would suggest. You see teams like Portland just kind of did this. They win 7 out of 10, they go on a tear, and then you look at who they played, and they didn't play so hot. As much as we want to harangue the Celtics, since January 1st, they went on 2 3-1 West Coast road trips, pretty good. And then here, to wrap up before the All-Star break, they beat the absolute snot out of the Knicks and the Cavs. So, there's some fluky losses and there's some nitpicky data you can feel upset about, but there's also proof positive that when it matters, this team is demonstrably better than I mean, just the way they embarrass. Can I swear?
Why not?
Thank you. You fucking embarrassed the Knicks. I mean, if you're the Knicks, it's just a regular season game. You dust yourself off. But that was so embarrassing for New York, the way the Celtics just dismantled them. Ditto Cleveland, but maybe Cleveland has a little more resolve. So I don't know. I have a problem where I'm supposed to be at a wedding in Alaska the day it's like game 6 of the NBA Finals is the 19th, and then I'm supposed to be in Alaska on the 20th. So I would like the Celtics to qualify for the finals because, that's how my bread is buttered, but I need them to do really well because I'd like to go to Alaska too.
Cam wants the brooms out.
Yeah.
5 games max.
No gentleman crap. Just get it done so I can go to Alaska, please.
Can I also tell you, there's plenty of time on a flight to Alaska to catch up on sleep. I think it's a legendary story. You only live once. They win game 5. You have that whole post game. We saw how amazing that was last year, Cam, when we're at the Garden until 6 a.m. And then you go right to Logan. You fly to Alaska. That's a story right there.
From the Garden. Yeah, but if there's a game 7, it depends. It depends.
Well, then you're screwed.
Well, the game 7 could be in Oklahoma City because so I could maybe fly from Alaska to the finals.
Prediction.
True.
I mean, it's got to be the Thunder, right?
I mean, you never know. I thought it was going to be the Thunder last year too, and that did not happen.
I didn't think it was going to be the Mavs. I'll tell you that much.
The fact that people can only throw out.
Let's not talk about such depressing things anyway.
Yeah.
Wholly unforgivable, and it's only gotten worse from a PR standpoint. And I mean, but the fact that the Thunder, and look, we're not a Thunder podcast either, but the fact, the fact that the only thing people can throw out about them is, hey, they haven't really proven it in the playoffs. That to me kind of says everything you need to know about that team compared to anyone you bring up in the West. Like, sure, they're vulnerable, but there's a reason that they're the favorites to get to the finals from that conference. That's a really well-rounded team that has looked outstanding without key pieces for long stretches.
Yeah, I maintain that putting the world on a 21-year-old shoulder, 22-year-old shoulders is an unfair ask, but Shea is in his prime. Like maybe Jay Williams, maybe Chet are a little too young, but they've got the guy. So yeah, I don't know. It's yeah. Can I just say about the Mavs, Bobby? I almost want to ask Celtics PR about this. How did Mavs PR not coach Nico Harrison or whatever the owner guys, like how did they not do better at crisis management? Like every time they've said something public, it's been worse. Are there?
I would love to talk to Celtics PR about their reaction to it, and
is there trained professionals in Dallas?
I don't know.
And they do not have the best reputation, and I can't imagine that Mark Cuban not being a part of the organization anymore has made them a better organization in that regard. They kind of seem adrift from afar.
A lot of people have left that organization since the sale and in recent years, and it just seems like a group that is disconnected internally and then also doesn't have the best handle on how to deal with. I mean, this one.
He's a Nike guy. They don't talk to people that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
to get Celtics sale news soon, right?
I hope.
Yeah, that will be coming down the pike soon. So we shall see. Cam has made very clear what he's championing for, and he might just get his wish.
That international money, baby. Drill,
So
baby, drill.
I mean, I'd love to see Pags be a part of and be
Yeah.
able to stay on. That no doubt. All right, let's wrap it up here by talking about the NBA All-Star Game. It's a new format with 4 teams. Only one of them was drafted properly. And so, Tatum and Brown, they're on this team with LeBron, Steph, and KD. The other rosters don't really hold up like that. And
The old
at the same
heads.
time, Gary Washburn even asked Tatum, you're on this team nicknamed the old heads. So I think as a point of pride in a competition where they can take breaks, they're not going to be like, hey, let's lose the first game and be done with it. But maybe their age does prove to be their downfall. We'll see. Ultimately, we'll start here, Justin. Are you optimistic? What's your outlook on this format going into Sunday's game?
I think whatever team ends up playing the Rising Stars will be entertaining because no one is going to want to lose to them. So
That's
that
the
will be
Tatum. That's the
entertaining.
Tatum team. Tatum and Brown play them first.
So that will be interesting, I think. I think the rest of it will be hot garbage, and they will abandon this and try to come up with something else. Or maybe not. If it's interesting enough, just that one little mini game, that might be enough to keep it going. I have some very boring ideas on how to fix it.
Very
I'll save
excited
that
to
for
get
later.
to those.
Yeah.
Cam, we start with your outlook on what the NBA is trying to cook up for Sunday.
Well, the winning team, the players each get like 150 grand, so maybe that'll incentivize them. I just think the NBA is speaking out of both sides of its mouth. You're creating this product. Look, it's not unlike something you might find at a neighborhood park. A tournament with an MC is a pretty big part of basketball culture. Like Kevin Hart is going to be on the floor MCing mid-game. If you squint, you can see all that. You've seen that on YouTube. That's like a Rucker Park kind of thing. That's kind of cool. I also think the NBA is very sanctimonious about the All-Star game, and like LaMelo can't play, and we have to take very seriously.
That was so dumb.
So
I don't even like
Terrible
him. And I
decision.
think that was dumb. Yeah.
Right.
The kids
He's
like him.
perfect for this
Let him
setting.
play.
Trae Young wasn't going to
Yeah.
be there initially.
that's what I'm saying. So like, look, last year the court was a light-up screen during the dunk contest. It's not a serious product, and it doesn't have to be. It can be fun. It can be wacky and colorful and ridiculous, and it's for teenagers. I remember being a teenager, and you texted to vote in the dunk contest, and I texted like 100 times for Nate Robinson. It's for teenagers. Sorry, I know that we're older adults who have to take the NBA seriously, but the All-Star game is not a serious thing. So make it as fun as possible. Unfortunately, the NBA is trying to do that, but then also has this like veneer of it's a very polished event, and they can't decide. So I think the tournament could be interesting. I think to your point, like the players don't want to get punked, so that might be fun. I just like I'm not based on my experience in season tournament, like I'm not confident they're going to be able to land the plane correctly.
Yeah, I'm willing to go into this open-minded. I'm also skeptical that this is the antidote to some terrible All-Star games that we've been treated to for a while now. And the reality is that it used to be, what was great about it in the past was when the fourth quarter came around, it could get cutthroat and competitive. So there was 3 quarters of let's throw behind the back passes from around half court, and Shaq's going to take a 3 and we'll see what happens here. But then the fourth quarter was compelling theater. It just hasn't been that way for a while, even with the Elam ending, which seemed like a good idea, but overall it hasn't worked. And so I think you're at a stage. Absolutely.
So last year, Adam Silver made a big stink of this is going to be competitive. We made it competitive. It was so uncompetitive that I left my seat and I just started hanging out in the back halls just to see what was up. And I watched Silver leave the court, and a reporter went up to him to ask him a question, and he just said no and kept walking.
Yeah.
And it was like,
smart move, Adam.
Yeah, he got the hell out of Dodge on that one. So look, fool me once, shame on you. I wonder if he's going to say this is going to be a competitive weekend, or if he's going to take a different tact when he has his media availability.
And so when it comes to solutions, Justin, we kick it off with you.
Pay the players more money. Pay them more money to win, like at least $1 million, at least to win. And if you want to make it more interesting, throw $500,000 for the leader for each of the counting stats overall. So whatever player scores the most points gets an extra $500,000. Whatever player gets the most rebounds, extra $500,000, etc. all the way down the line for counting stats. It'll cost a lot more money. Also, here's a big brain idea. Get rid of contract bonuses for all-star appearances. Let the fans vote the players they want in. End of story.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know if that solves the problem, but
It'll be different, and we've seen some different ass shit. So
yeah. Is it my turn?
Go ahead.
Look, at the end of the day, it's the game is antithetical to what it is. This is about selling Starry and Jordan and 2K. There's a big convention all weekend long. There's events all around town. It actually doesn't really matter if people watch the game, quite frankly. So, unfortunately, the players show up having worked a full weekend. Like, Jason Tatum is going to do something. I'm not 100% sure of this, but I'm pretty sure he's going to do something with Jordan Brand. He's going to do something with SoFi. He'll probably do something with 2K. He will probably go golfing. He's not showing up like fresh and rested for this game. He's going to be exhausted. So part of it is it's just a circus, and the players are busy. They don't just like show up with their camcorders to like watch each other play like they used to. They got stuff to do.
Camcorder. You're old.
Well, that was in reference to.
Well, I said Shaq, and I think he's thinking of
yeah. So I think I agree with Justin. I also wonder if, no offense to Indiana and Utah, but the players got
better
in
locations. Yeah,
they got in late and they left as quickly as possible. Maybe San Francisco has some buzz. Next year's LA. Maybe that.
Are you saying Boston in February might not be the most optimal location for a future All-Star game? Because I kind of agree.
You don't think they're going to be popping at Sullivan's Tap?
They might be frozen on the way there.
I don't know. Toronto was okay. Look, I also think the NBA is at like a weird inflection point where the biggest stars are really, really old and the younger stars are like a little subservient and quiet. And I think our favorite All-Star games were when star players were at the peak of their powers. But I'm sure that I don't have like a single memory of entire All-Star games past.
No,
just
not a whole All-Star game.
Patches and flashes, but that's about it.
Bring back Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon, fix the dunk contest. That's the real problem.
So, I mean, the dunk contest, I just think everyone's seen all of the dunks.
But then you go on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, and you see some guy in Croatia do a dunk you didn't even think was possible, and you're like, well, hire that
Make
guy.
it global. Yeah, why not? Why does that? I mean, we have Max.
So is that what you would want? Because the people who are traditionally in the dunk contest aren't going to try whatever you saw from the guy in Croatia. Do you want,
anyway,
people who are not in the NBA come in and just wow us with these dunks? Is that what you would want?
I'd be fine with that. Look, I thought Jalen's dunks. You both have heard me say this before. I think Jalen needs 2 more inches on his vertical to be a world-class dunker. He's not there. There are star players who can dunk. I don't like whatever you got to do to incentivize John Morant to do the dunk contest. Make it happen, because he doesn't need to jump over a Kia. He also doesn't need to like do a backflip. But I'm sure he can do something of interest with respect to Castle or like the guy on the Bulls that I don't remember the name of. It needs star power. Like Michael Jordan was 1987, so he's only in the league for like 3 years. But a big gold chain and just like taking off and like doing it with pizzazz and swagger is so much cooler than G League Mac McClung playing on a light up court that's Mountain Dew colored. Close. So whatever you got to do to incentivize the stars to do. Oh wait, I have while I'm pissed off. Steph and Sabrina backing out of the 3-point contest is a disaster.
Yeah, I hated to see that.
That sucks. It's in San Francisco. Steph's not in the 3-point contest anymore.
That's weird.
That sucks. They better have someone come up with a fake injury and put Steph on the bill instead. I can't believe that that's not happening.
I mean, at one point, the idea of Steph and whoever against Caitlin Clark and Sabrina, like that should have happened, and it would have been electric. It was great last year with Steph and Sabrina. I'm with you, Cam. Yeah, I'm with you. Good point. That it's really disappointing that it fell through. When it comes to my outlook on how to fix the All-Star game, money can help, and usually you look to that as the answer, but they raised the pot last year and it did nothing. And there are people in this game rather influential like LeBron who make it as high as you want, it's not going to move the needle for him, and that's fine if it reaches some guys and not others. But to me, I wonder at this point if we need to dismantle the idea of a team game for this. And you're right, Cam, as a side note, that by the time they get to the All-Star game, they probably look at it like we've run through the tape. We've met with the advertisers, the sponsors. We've done stuff for our individual brands to help the NBA. We've partied. We're good here. We're just gonna kind of go through the motions right now, and no one could knock them for that mindset. At the same time, what we see at the Olympics, and that's right after an NBA season, is how competitive and how compelling those one-on-one games are, where they cycle through and the person who's scoring and going on a run has no issue being out there for a while. So I wonder if they could do some kind of one-on-one tournament, and you can change the rules by the round, and you don't have to make it King's Court. So you can really pace people while showing off their outrageous one-on-one abilities. We hear all the time at this level, you can't guard someone one-on-one. It's just not going to work. Everyone is an absolute bucket. These are the best of the best. So if you have the best of the best within that crop, the 1%ers or so, I like the idea of a one-on-one format, and then you can make restrictions each round based on location they start from, how many dribbles, you name it. So that, to me, I don't say it ever happens, but I think, Justin, it would be worth a try.
I would also like to see, for future expansion of things that could happen, there used to be a game where they would play from Europe. I think it was the All-American, McDonald's All-American Challenge or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was called. But something like that, where we see more international teams playing each other under the auspices of NBA in an exhibition game that would never take place otherwise, or at least not in the near future, could be another way to garner some international interest.
I'm curious behind closed doors what the players say. I mean, they all give the same canned answer at press conferences and stuff. I wonder under Truth Serum if they have something of interest, or if just sincerely they don't want the All-Star game to be a competitive game, and that's just like straight up their position.
No one wants to get hurt for sure, but I mean, beyond that,
is there? Can anyone think of a consequential injury at the All-Star game, like back when it supposedly had juice?
I mean, the one that comes to mind, is not consequential, but Dwayne Wade accidentally elbowing Kobe in the nose and breaking his nose, and then Kobe telling him, "I love it."
I can think of one if you really kind of stretch what we call an injury, and this is very Celtics oriented. It involves Nick Nurse and Kemba Walker.
Yes, that is a good point.
So you're saying Nick Nurse ruined the All-Star game?
I mean, he might have ruined the Celtics.
Might have ruined that Celtic season, but it did ultimately pave the roads for an Al Horford trade to bring him back to Boston.
This is true. I bite my tongue.
Thank you,
circuitous way for Nick Nurse that he actually saved the Celtics.
Big brain. Love it.
Right. We'll wrap it up on that note. For Cameron Tabatabai and Justin Quinn from Celtics Wire and the Celtics Lab podcast, I'm Bobby Kravitsky here at Celtics Rundown. We will be back next week, just like the Celtics. Hopefully this All-Star game is a success, but if not, you can look to our advice on how to save it moving forward. Thank you once again to Cam and Justin, and we appreciate you tuning in. That's all for this week's edition of Celtics Rundown.